you had it all before. Now losing what you didn't know you had. Hearing what you weren't nearing, but you're really trying to get away from me. Basic instincts overpowering. You still have this urge. This could be good enough for us. This could be good enough for us. When this could be good enough for us.
Carry on the battle song, the war's not over, the dawn's not that far away. Hop back on the saddle soon, you soulless soldier, the dark can consume your brain. All we ever wanted was a little air to breathe, but all we got are ashes of our old memories. They can try to take me down, but they can't take me to my knees. No, you'll never take me. Not my choice, but it's my blood to bleed.
Tinsley sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Bar Bissell FTF Cup Series.
To the lead. Bud gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordy Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they are going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Oh, get your front gear.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
This is going to win.
Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series in-sim car action makes its way to the Brickyard as the top drivers in the series look to conquer the road course at iRacing's virtual International Speedway at Indianapolis. Today, it's the penultimate round of the campaign to see which drivers can lock themselves up for championship contention and which battles go on to one final round in 2 weeks' time. Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Pritz. Alongside of the booth tonight is Joey Atterbury with Zach Johnson in the production suite as we get all set to go racing from the modern-day Indianapolis road course. Lots of drivers looking excited about tonight. And remember, this is with the most current layout for some drivers, so the first league action with the modern-day layout.
It is that modern layout, like you were saying, although not too much has changed, just a few apexes moved. You know, I think that a lot of these drivers are going to be plenty comfortable, but I think the highlight section is definitely that switchback, Justin, that we've seen so many cars and trouble areas in real life. We're not going to have that here in the sim, but I think that's probably going to be one of the fun highlight areas.
As drivers get themselves situated for tonight, let's talk about how the championships are coming into this evening. The GT3 Pro side, Christian Youngwall, for reference, is the points leader, overall leader, in fact, of the standings. 567 total points. Ray Kingsbury, the closest to him. Separation is under 100 points. Also in the conversation, Cody Crossgrove, if either drivers struggle here tonight. Blake Reynolds, meanwhile, to his surprise when discussing things earlier today, the points leader in the prototypes. That lead over Flynn Lazier, his teammate, but is close. Remember, Lazier missed the first round of the season at Road America. All while Brian Son, looking to sing his way to an AM championship, has picked up a lot of points over Marwin Mofta as of late. But it's still a scenario where most of the championships are not quite clinched yet. Remember, when it comes to this season, still 90 points per round left on the docket.
Well, and remember, tonight isn't the end of it. We still go to Watkins Glen here in just a couple weeks, so points are valuable here.
Exactly why I mentioned the 90 points difference. So essentially, if you get above that 90-point threshold exiting tonight, very confident on the championship front with the format. The qualifying currently underway for these drivers. Michael Gonzalez, who is in tonight's action for his first start in the series, driving one of the Penguin RC Simulation back cars, top of the board, 114.2. Reynolds, Lazier, Nate Stewart coming back into action right at the top 4 of the prototypes. Yunwall, Fanning, Mofta is the top AM driver in 3rd overall in car type.
Pretty impressive for Marwin Mofta out there in qualifying, although I'm not too surprised. Marwin is always one of the fastest GT3 cars despite carrying that AM tag and just kind of flexing a little bit of muscle as we do get that checkered flag here.
With that, drivers are just about all set to go. Out tonight for works out once more. Sprint action first, 15 minutes, 45 minutes for tonight's feature. Let's take a look at how they'll line up for the sprint race based on qualifying speed. Michael Gonzalez, welcome to the top of the board. He'll start alongside his good pal Blake Reynolds. Flynn Lazier and Nate Stewart in row 2. Row 3, Robert Lowry and Chris Bretz. And the other prototype of the field tonight is the FTF Drivers Club driver of Justin Malloy. That leads us in turn to the GTs. with Christian Youngwall leading the way on the pro side over Kevin Fanning. Marwin Malta, top 10 starting position overall, top 3 in car class. A sizable gap, though, in AM is critical as we look towards the second half of the top 10, Joey.
Yeah, and in 11th place overall, but 4th in GT3, we've got John Marchbanks next to him. It's going to be Brandon Lambert. Then we've got Cody Crossgrove and Justin Nasir out there, Ray Kingsbury. And then comes your next AM car, Tim Brokaw. So you're right, Marwin Mofta, quite a big track position gain in the AM class. Then we also have Brian Son, Paul Mikolajczyk back here, Gary Freeman, and 2 more, Matt Kingsbury and Trevor Greenfield.
The bad news is for Greenfield, he indicated just as qualifying was about to start that he lost electricity, was trying to run on a UPS, so basically a backup battery. And in turn, that also ran out. So, 20 total starters tonight. Unfortunately for Greenfield, who does not have power connections. Also of note, it appears that Justin Nasir, Lance Nasir, has backed out of the session just as we were about to take to the grid roll for the pace lap. So just like that 19 cars, we lost too quickly.
Well, you know, sometimes it happens. I mean, if you guys were tuning in just this past Sunday, I'm pretty sure a car didn't even make the grid on that big 500-miler out there.
Everybody decided to back up because tire model. But in turn, though, you mentioned in terms of this road course, an intriguing road course layout. Keep in mind, this track originally had its road course built for Formula 1 Grand Prix action when this facility hosted the United States Grand Prix. That also included the modern-day pagoda that's set up along the front straightaway that was built as the scoring tower for those respective races. So, in turn, Joey, based on what you've seen with real-world action and what you've seen in the virtual world, how do you expect these drivers to attack this racetrack tonight?
I think it's going to be pretty aggressive. You know, I don't have personal experience on this exact layout, but I've ran several different layouts at Indianapolis, including the old original F1 or similar to it that uses the NASCAR banking coming out onto the front straightaway, and then also have ran this one with the Conda modern day chicane, although the back half is a little bit changed since I have ran it, and I expect there to be a lot of passing opportunities presented. However, specifically through these areas, it can funnel down so narrow to single file that if these prototypes aren't patient and they try to nose their way through too aggressively, it can just end up in tears for all parties.
So in turn with the sprint race, who do you think's got the best opportunity here? We've seen how crazy things have gone in some of these sprint races, and one of the big moments, including some of the drivers in this field tonight, was when they, in stock cars, all wrecked down this back straightaway in the last iRacing iteration of this track.
Well, I think the biggest difference is that these cars have good brakes. All right, they got good brakes, they got good tires. The drivers are confident on what their brake markers are and where they can take them. So I don't think we're going to see too many overshot problems on the brakes. But 15 minutes with the sprint. Definitely a lot of passing opportunities, and the draft. I haven't mentioned it, the draft on the front straightaway. These cars are hauling the mail down there, so definitely keep an eye on that.
Also, something to keep an eye on, very hot track conditions, 116 degrees Fahrenheit, it's worth noting today. 71 degrees is the air temperature. Partly cloudy skies swirl around this facility. Winds currently at about 3 miles per hour to the west. And it's very humid because, well, it is summertime now, mind you, so the heat expected to be intense. Not just in the track surface, but on the racing surface with the cars battling. As we get ourselves situated, we're glad to have you with us tonight from iRacing's Virtual Speedway, Indiana. It's SimCar. It's the Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series. It's here for the penultimate round. It's sprint action. Reynolds and Gonzalez amongst the front row, all set to get us underway from the Brickyard. Green flag waiting up at the stand. We're underway from the Brickyard. And a slow up from the outside. Reynolds later through the gears. Michael Gonzalez already clear. Here comes Flynn Lazier to the inside on the send for the lead.
That was 3 wide there between the prototypes as they get settled out. But check out this GT3 start. We're 3 wide down the front straightaway for the second place position. That's Mafta, Fanning, and Marchbanks all squeezing through. BMW, Audi sandwich, but looks like everyone makes it through without any serious contact.
2x2 still for those drivers. Indeed, a clean start for all competitors of note in this year, and as well Greenfield making to the racetrack, both starting for the pit lane after originally missing the whole grid procedure. As there goes Brandon Lambert. He hits Cody Cosgrove across the track. It's a big crash in the back of the pack. 4+ cars collide for our first major crash of the day.
You see multiple cars involved. I believe it was Cody Cosgrove that was one of the first that had a big hook spin, but you see multiple players just heavy damage. At least this is only the sprint, it's not the feature.
Some of the Penguin RC simulation cars, such as Cosgrove, doing very well in car time this season. The GT3 third place points driver gonna fall back potentially with that incident. Up at the front though, Michael Gonzalez holding on to the lead. We're talking about this with Blake Reynolds before tonight's action. He's one of the several drivers expected to run endurance action during the Majors 24 this weekend. In fact, for Penguin's RC simulation.
Yeah, that's another big event that's going to be coming up here this weekend. But I tell you what, Indianapolis kind of stands on its own well. I know that Le Mans is big, but I'm kind of happy we're here. I know that it's June now. It's no longer May, but we're still here in Indianapolis.
Let's take a look at the replay on what happened down that straightaway, and talked about how the back straightaway can be treacherous with that chicane. Well, it collected 4 or 5 drivers. Watch this out of the corner.
Ooh, there was some contact between Cosgrove and I can't remember who that Mercedes was, but I think just with the cold tires, Cosgrove got too aggressive over the curbs, maybe lifted off of the throttle, and coupled that with the Mercedes behind, giving a little bit of a tap, and I mean, the dominoes continue to fall after that as they bounce back into the track.
That was Brandon Lambert in just his 4th total race start. That includes the rounds with sprint/feature. And this also just happening in Nate Stewart. He had been one of the front runners early, and then he decides, well, he doesn't really decide, the tires decide to go off the track.
The common area, too. It's a tricky brake zone. You don't realize, actually, how fast you're going into there, and the car is all sorts of unweighted. Can catch you off guard, but looks like he's back pointed the right direction, making a pass on track again.
Giving him lots of space there. Robert Lowry, in fact, he apologized over the radio there with that pass. That was Justin Malone, in fact, with how close things were in terms of the fellow pink machines. But already 11 minutes to go on the clock, just like that, the race going by that quickly. With how things played out on that AM start, Tim Brokaw now leading the class, taking it away from Mafta. Mafta lost a ton of time as a result of that sandwiching off the start.
You're right. He was 3 wide for that second position, and he was kind of the one that got shuffled back. But Tim Brokaw taking advantage of all the chaos in front of him, the good start. He's up 4 positions, currently your AM leader, trying to chase down, I believe that's Ray Kingsbury right in front of Tim. And trust me, they are not too far up the road, so this AM battle might turn into an overall podium battle.
These are critical points to consider when it comes to the AM battle, because Brokaw is trying to battle for at least second of the point standings and try and pass by his competitor in Mafta. Battles like this can fare out well. Of note, Freeman hearing is off circuit. Gary Freeman in the 666, his teammate. He did not have the funnest of times a couple rounds ago. The funnest of times not continuing here with the off tracks early for the AM driver.
It can be tough sometimes. Racing, it can love you, and it can also spit you at the curb. Trust me, I've seen both of them, and as we jump back up, look at this. This is the prototype. This is the lead battle. Second place.
Blake Reynolds passing by Michael Gonzalez. Able to zip by with Flynn Lazier running off and away, and now everyone does. The Indy Snake This brought up tons of controversy when it comes to the rearwheel action at this facility. And this time, no major snaking stopping the sun from Gonzalez. Two dead zone-based drivers on the oval side looking to battle it out amongst the track on the road course side once more.
Gonzalez very confident on the brakes going into turn one. However, Blake Reynolds right now in a good position. You see Gonzalez now his turn to do the snake to try to break the draft a little bit. Does Blake Reynolds be close enough? Nope, he's going to kind of be patient, wait right in line for another opportunity.
Again, Gonzalez, someone who's ran RTP competition with Reynolds and several others in his respective oval side. Should be surprised to see how he's been running, though, in terms of this pace. Blake Reynolds, meanwhile, though, still keeping the contention together with the traffic starting to become a potential play. Trevor Greenfield already reeled in with this back of the field start.
I think oh, and there he goes around. That's a GT3 car right around in front of the prototype leader. He's got to be careful how he rejoins the track out there. So you see he's being very patient, waiting for a nice gap. Props to you.
Again, Greenfield not having the funnest of times when it comes to his power situation. Hence the back of the field start for at least a sprint race. Having to take the sacrifice of the points there. But still, plenty of traffic to deal with for a lot of these drivers. That's going to make things intriguing for that battle for second and prototype soon. Flynn Lazier just passing by Matt Kingsbury. The 15th overall car on track, mid-pack for the GTs.
It's going to be nothing but coming up to heavier GT traffic as we go. And I mean, we're halfway through, call it, this sprint race. And I mean, I can't wait to see what the feature has in store. Oh, there's a problem with multi-class traffic. You see one of the prototypes almost get into the back of the Audi.
That's Michael Gonzalez about to clip to the grass. A little bit nerve-wracking, but the traffic for Blake Reynolds as well as they clear him by. The battle for second, seen tons of time picked up, nearly 4 seconds now for Lazier. Same deal now being dealt with for Lowry in the backdrop. But keep in mind, that's what can happen with the speed difference. 10, 15 seconds a lap right now.
Well, it's kind of a similar story. We've seen Flynn Lazier just kind of check out, and now we're seeing Michael Gonzalez use the GT3 car kind of as a pick, try to break whatever draft he can of Blake Reynolds, continuing to hunt him down. And that was just as Gonzalez had built up that little bit of gap, that GT3 car just right in the road in front of him.
Keep in mind, it's been talked about a lot how much Reynolds has helped some of the various drivers here. What do you think is going through the mind of these respective drivers? Knowing these, in regards to Reynolds too, his team is leading the team championship with Bangor RC Simulation GTP. More than 1,100 points scored on the season.
Well, look at how busy the racetrack is as Gonzalez cuts underneath. That's Marwan Mafta, I believe. Then we got Tim Brokaw. Then we got Ray Kingsbury and John Marchbanks here, weaving through the GT3 cars.
Oh, that's not a good punt. Ray Kingsbury trying to make a pass on Marchbanks, heading the back end of Gonzalez. Gonzalez just back to the line. Brokaw now trying to make up overall points. Picking up a buffer now and Mafta in the backdrop. A hornet's nest in the traffic. Now the M lead broken up by 2 of the pro cars. Near contact again. Lowry checked up on the outside groove. Taking advantage of the inside line. Chris Wett's coming through.
What a mess. It is rush hour out there at Indianapolis. And now we got side by side here between the prototypes. A little bit of door rubbing.
Lowry making contact, restoring the backdrop. Able to keep it going though. Keep it clean for the time being. Still lots of traffic for them to deal with, though. Now it's Brokaw trying to battle with Marchbanks. Also in line, Ray Kingsbury wants a spot back. Mafta also in the train. Coming up to 5 minutes to go on the clock. Already, the traffic able to dissipate, at least for the faster traffic. Nate Stewart, meanwhile, looking for all the passes side by side, and he's inside nearly the car of Lowry. More contact nearly.
Oh, edges his way through, though. Nate Stewart up into that 5th place position, and just behind, actually, I think I saw Mafta get into the back at Kingsbury as well, but Lowry not letting go of Stewart.
Lowry's been very strong in the later stages of the season. Keep in mind, lots of improvement showcased. Because remember, his respective squad seen him start a little bit slow on the season, but since around that midway point, he's been really picking up the consistency when it comes to these prototypes. Has been actually able to match the pace with some of the leaders in the early going.
I think a lot of speed, it's just comfort. And in order to be comfortable, it's just practice time. The more practice time that you can put in, the more comfortable you're going to be on the racetrack. This is one of those funnel opportunities, but you see most of the parties being smart about it, but now we're 2 wide once again.
How about 3 wide with Christian Yonwall up the middle for a second. Nate Stork trying to utilize GTs as picks. Lowry not going to be happy there as off the track goes the AM leader, Brian Son from that.
Oh, just a whole lot going on the racetrack right now. Chris Wett's directly in front of Nate Stewart. He's next on the list. You got to think that Nate wants to get this pass done with only 3.5 minutes left.
Oh, we got a crash. This involves Mofta. Mofta trying to battle for the AM points lead, collected in the battle with Matt and Ray Kingsbury. Matt Kingsbury shuffles through Ray Kingsbury through the grass. Mofta with significant damage.
Yeah, I believe this is the second time that Mofta and Kingsbury have come together at the end of the back straightaway as well. Let's check this replay. You're going to see the Audi duck out late. Drivers left. Little bit of contact with the BMW. It's tough to tell from some of these angles, Justin. I feel like Mofta was there. However, given the prior run-in, I don't think Ray was leaving any room.
Keep in mind, there was that contact and a bit of a send the previous lap we were hearing as well. You mentioned the second time, it escalated.
It's tough. It's tough. And here we are. They're still together out on track. It seems like even when there's an incident, they got magnets that are attracting each other.
Less than 3 minutes to go on the clock. A couple laps to be able to work things out for the sprint race. Sierra Gonzalez Reynolds of the prototypes. Yunwall, Fanning, Marshbanks, and Pro. GT3 AM. Brokaw now able to run away 4th overall in car type, mind you. As a matter of fact, he might get a top 3 in the car because Marshbanks is fighting as hard as he can to try and hold on in that Simply Inspired Coloco racing car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tim Brokaw is on the charge. Look at this. He's right in the tire tracks of the Audi right in front of him. In fact, he might take a look down here as he does. Not going to do it this time, but he's been one of the faster GT3 cars on track. He qualified back there in 9th, but been on a charge ever since the green flag flew.
Good day for our design in turn in general. Currently 2nd and 4th with Fanning and Brokaw. As we come up to the final minute and 40 seconds, about 2 to go to work with on the racetrack. Brokaw not close enough for the send quite yet for reference marks.
Interesting to see the top speed differences. The GT3 class is always very well balanced, but it really comes down to each driver and what kind of wing angle they want, how much top speed versus grip through the infield.
Yeah, and that grip very critical, but also making sure, as we've seen with several of these different lines in these braking marks, you don't overheat those brakes, especially as some would describe the brake fluid in the midst of the braking mechanism themselves, where you already seen with Marshbanks, he's not as comfortable in the brakes.
Yeah, and it very well could be. I wouldn't expect it to be, but I think that, yes, there is definitely differences in braking performance. And here we go. Once again, Brokaw as close as he's ever been. This is close enough to make a move here.
White flag already waving for the flag stand. Final time around coming up for the sprint race. Brokaw looking for a podium, and the overall finish for the GT3 is a huge lunge. And near contact, Marshbanks able to park the line.
But crucially, look at this. He's going to be right in the draft of the Audi coming out onto this very long straightaway. How much can he take advantage being right in the slipstream? Actually, doesn't look like he's closing up too much. Got about 2 miles an hour on him right now.
He's going for it, though, showing the nose. Not close enough. Still able to hold on for the time being. All of this is Lau coming to the checker flag, this time by Flynn Lazier. He strikes first in the penultimate round. Flynn Lazier wins in the Brickyard in the sprint race. Second spot goes to Gonzalez, Blake Reynolds third, and Chris Wetz in the midst of the battle for fourth, losing the spot in a 3-car fight.
Such action between Stewart, Lowry, and Wetz. Stewart sent it in on Wetz. Lowry capitalized around the outside. And yeah, I think that Wetz went up there and kind of voiced a little something.
All this as well, coming up to the final section. Christian Yunwall, he's been so quick today, he very quietly walked away from the field by up to 0.3 a lap at one point. Christian Yunwall doing Yunwall things. The overall in all car type points later with a 125.5 as he takes the checkered.
You see Kevin Fanning there right behind taking second place. And oh, check this out. Was there problems there with John Marchbanks?
Marchbanks is out of gas.
Well, that promotes Tim Brokaw. He was going to win AM anyways, but now he's on the GT3 podium as well.
Marchbanks with about a liter or two less in gas as Matt Kingsbury decides to slam him, and that's not going to help like he was hoping. There was an attempt. The attempt failed and cost him 3 spots.
I apologize for laughing, but that was a great attempt. A+ for effort.
So with that, Lazier, Gonzalez, Reynolds, the top 3 in prototype unofficially in the sprint race. Stewart taking the spot for 4th from Robert Lowry and Chris Wetz in the final lap. Justin Malillo in 7th. Yunwall, Fanning, Brokaw, the top 3 in GT3. Brokaw, the AM winner, though, critically. A great run for Brokaw.
Great run for Brokaw back there. Then we got Lance Nasir here in 11th. Matt Kingsbury, Ray Kingsbury, Marwin Moftas comes home 2nd on that AM podium there. John Marchbanks, who we just saw, unfortunately run out of gas. Trevor Greenfield, Gary Freeman, then cars that had problems out there or did not finish got collected. Brian Son, Paul Mikolajczyk, and Brandon Lambert.
Of note, Greenfield did take some laps in this race and was able to take the checker in the sprint. Hearing that Marchbanks under fuel by 4 laps. How?
Well, and I don't know how you can under fuel for 4 laps and still get to the finish here, as this is the attempt at the push. I think we're going to try to get a look at that prototype battle, but I don't know how you do that 4 laps and still be able to finish. How is that possible?
Lots of saving, but here's a look at that battle. This is after the line. The reason I want to take a look, this all shuffled out with these major sends in the final section. Lots of traffic the lap prior to set this up. And then Chris Wetz in turn with that non-preferred line losing the spots at the end of that lap.
Yeah, and right before this, you saw, I believe it was Reynolds, or it was Nate Stewart just kind of get a late move in there, and there you see Stewart and Wetz post-race. Now, something I want to note about that, remember, we still have a 45-minute feature. I bet you they are going to be racing together out there.
Yes, indeed, as it looks like one of the prototypes selected to spend this practice time celebrating things. By the way, that's Michael Gonzalez, believe, who was trying to burn it down. So real quickly, quick thoughts before the feature.
Oh, well, it got busy out there on the racetrack. I didn't expect to see so many battles that involved both classes together. We saw Gonzalez get up the back of a GT3 car. We saw several times where it was 3 wide between classes. I think with 45 minutes, just keep a level head out there. The cleaner your car is, the better off you got at speed at the finish.
Now keep in mind the running order follows through with what happened in the sprint race. The interesting things to keep in mind, Cosgrove having to start shotgun on the field now, 21st in the GT3s. You have Brian Son, who ended up finishing 7 laps down after being the AM leader for a decent second or 2. And then you have Marwin Mofta, who has to pick up 3+ spots to keep up with Brokaw off the start. A lot to think about when it comes to those GT3s.
Well, and I want to put Tim Brokaw on a pedestal a little bit, because he came out here with some significant speed when it came to this sprint race. He just kind of blew through the field, ended up on the GT3 overall podium. I'm curious to see, does that speed hold up for the 45-minute feature? Can he hold together the strategy to keep the car up there at the front of this GT3 field? Or do we see the likes of Marwan Mafta come up there and race him? Or do we see maybe even some of these GT3 cars that got taken out on that lap 1 incident come up through the field?
So much to consider when it comes to that, and also how the points spread apart before we head off to Watkins Glen in about 2 weeks' time to secure the championship. But again, when it comes to points calculations, Lazier able to chip away a bit at Blake Reynolds' gap. The difference between first and second in class in the sprint race, 3 points. So Lazier now very tight, down to a difference of 6 points between him and Reynolds with how they finished out that respective class. As well of note when it comes to the AM side, Mafta losing a bit of ground in terms of his buffer to Brokaw as a result of Brokaw's strong finish. So now, with the points doubled up, the pressure's definitely on with the pit stop to factor in too.
Strategy always comes in. You got to be careful of what everyone else is doing. And not only that, but we just saw, granted it wasn't the prototype class, but we just saw a GT3 competitor not get the right amount of fuel in. So you have to be careful that you are on the right strategy, you get enough fuel in, and that you can make it to the finish of the race as well.
With that, it's time to look again how things play out for the feature tonight. As mentioned, it goes through the running order from the previous race for the sprint. Lazier, Gonzalez, Reynolds, and Stewart, the top-born prototypes, Lowry, Wetz, and Malillo. Then Yunwall, Fanning, and Brokaw start the respective pack top 3 in the GTs. Also of note, the Kingsburys in row 7, right behind where Lance Nazier should say, went off. Nazier quietly, mind you, finished 4th in that last race. Then you also have Mafta, Marshbanks, hopefully with enough fuel this time. Greenfield still able to recover mid-pack and car type. Freeman Jr., along with Son. Then you have the 177 to 46, along with Crossgrove to close things out in his O2 machine. 21 drivers on the racetrack. So now, how do you win the feature? What are your keys based on what you've seen in the sprint that you expect to come into play now for the feature?
Well, if we're going to talk about the prototype class here, can anybody stop Flynn Lazier? Because it seems like whenever Flynn is on the track here in this Penguin RC Simulation Sim Car Series, he's so fast out there, and he always puts together a good race strategy. And sure, some other cars might top the sheets in practice or qualifying on occasion, but when it comes to the race pace and just clicking off those laps, the number 3 car is just rock solid out there. So in my mind, story of the prototypes, who can go knock off that number 3 car? In the GT3s, it's going to be Christian Youngwall for me. He got a huge start in the GT3 as a jump on that start. He was able to keep pace with the GT3 cars behind him. Does he unleash that pace, or does he just kind of cruise out front like he always does and collect another win? Can anybody challenge Flynn or Christian today?
That's the big question here. Still half a lap before we get rolling. For reference, the track temperature has gone down to 109 degrees. Lots of drivers having fun over the radio, and after all, keep in mind when it comes to the per race and the championship awards, when it comes to the prize pool from Penguin RC Simulation, which has sim racing gear and RC equipment available, each time the drivers come away with a class victory, $15 towards an order of guaranteed free shipping. That's based on the average finish between the sprinter feature, or how the enduro races finish out. So Lazier and Yunwall might be comfortable on that front. AM gets $10 for reference for winning their respective class, but also a $75 credit for each of the car classes for winning the car type. That's a lot of sim racing gear that's been racked up by some of these drivers like Lazier, Reynolds, Yunwall in particular, to add to their equipment, or they can have fun with RC cars.
Well, I just like the companies getting involved with a lot of these leagues and series, and really giving back to the sim racing community. We're all one big happy family out here, and you just mentioned the chat, everybody having fun in the chat. That's what we're here to do, is we're here to have a fun time and enjoy racing, also be competitive out there on the racetrack.
Well, as talked about early in the season, Brian Son, who is one of the top people over at Penguin RC Simulation, well, he's been strong all season at an 03 machine in the M class. Meanwhile, his fellow teammates, when it comes to their GTP entries, looking to set things up. 1, 2, 3, Nate Stewart, one of the Rise Esports entries. Robert Lowry sets up 5th for the prototypes, just about all set to go. Feature action from the Brickyard. The penultimate feature race of the season for the Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series is underway from Indy. And a much better start for the outside line this time. Gonzalez trying to block off Nate Stewart. Stewart trying to pinch all the way to the wall. They both go with Lazier trying to block them off. Lazier holds on. Gonzalez gets contact as Stewart sends himself back up to 4th.
Now we've got a green flag in the GT3 classes. Christian Youngwall once again with a fantastic start, but 2, 3, almost 4 wide behind for 5th place right now. Looks like it's Fanning and Brokaw going to settle it out for second. Oh no, we got contact between Brokaw and Nasir and Kingsbury.
Brokaw, who did so well in the sprint race, involved. Nasir backing up. One car going backwards, one of the Kingsburys. That's Ray.
Yeah,
Matt indeed as well involved.
Yeah, both Kingsburys just not having luck on the first lap. Once again, I think Brokaw, who was doing so good in the sprint, got away with escaping there as the GT3 cars now single file.
Well, this one big time towards Mofta's direction, didn't it? Mofta able to jump up a lot of spots in the M class in turn. See how things shuffle. Brokaw still is in the class lead, though, by 4 seconds despite all that.
Well, not only that, but he is right on the back bumper of Kevin Fanning right in front of him. It's this, I believe, we're looking, here's these two BMWs. This is Brokaw and Fanning, both in the black cars, but Tim Brokaw with an excellent run to complete the first lap out onto the front straightaway. He's going to have a passing opportunity now. He's already going to go driver's right of Kevin Fanning. He's going to go late on the brakes for second place.
Fanning, the pro driver for R Design, making the move. Brokaw near contact in turn. And keep in mind, part of that team name is the design aspect. Paint community very strong. Brokaw, in fact, designing several paint schemes under the R Design banner, including their entries rally cars. He put designs in, as was for Nitro Circus, mind you, for the R Design.
Okay, so there's the tie-in, the Nitro Circus. They do love getting dirty over there.
Yes, they do. We were talking about that a bit with Blake Reynolds. He was excited after what happened in Nitro Circus, to say the very least, recently on the sim side. But still, amongst those to keep an eye on, Cody Cosgrove doing Cosgrove things, making it through just about all of that, up to the top 3 in the pro class. Ray Kingsbury, his teammate, falling behind this lap to him.
If you want to talk about this 0-2 car, remember in the sprint, he was in the wall lap 1, so we never got to see the speed that Cody Cosgrove has inside that BMW, and right now, he is putting it on full display, up 10 positions.
When it comes to Cosgrove, just about locked in for a 3rd spot in the point standings, keep in mind. For the driver's side, at least, with Penguin's RC Simulation. Started off the season, remember, with that victory at Road America, but since then has finished on the podium half the time. The other time, he's been 16th, 6th, 3rd. So a podium in the midst. 14th, 5th, back to the podium again. It's been a pattern of bad finish, top 10, podium. Bad finish, top 10, podium for the past couple rounds.
Well, I think he's hoping to repeat the process, but eliminate the top 10 part, because he had the bad finish in the sprint, and now he's hoping for the podium here because he's already in. Well, I mean, I guess he is in GT3 podium contention, but get up there past Tim Brokaw, then you can call yourself officially on the podium.
Took me a second to remember you're considering the sprint part indeed as part of the pattern. Yes, you're right indeed on that. So, Ray Kingsbury, though, I must also to try to do the same. Ray Kingsbury showed some solid speed throughout the campaign. In fact, second of points for a reason. In fact, won a race. One of the few times Yunwall didn't move in. Where is he going?
That was a tad bit aggressive right there. And oh, it looks like we got Tim Brokaw spun around the next corner here. He's backing up off of the track to get out of the way. But we've been talking about how great Tim Brokaw's pace has been. Gonna have a mountain to climb now.
Self-spin, it appears, and a lot of time lost. Mofta, Son, Freeman already all passing him in the M class as a result. For those curious, by the way, that move for Ray Kingsbury cost him about 5 spots on the racetrack.
This was a bit over exuberant here. I mentioned how tricky this brake zone is. It can definitely catch you out, and caught him out right here.
You can see, almost looked like he was trying to avoid his teammate more so than the pass. But then just takes the additional layout, because why not?
And, you know, great job at avoidance, because he realized he was in too deep. And now this is Tim Brokaw here. Just slow speed spin, probably started on entry. But what I love here, watch Tim. He gets in reverse. He backs it up off of the racing line. He avoids anybody else coming through.
So several shakeups. Mofta now leading the M class. Brokaw all the way back 14 seconds behind where Mofta's on the circuit. Oh, by the way, it's traffic management time. That's Flynn Lazier who just drove by. Still a 1 second gap over Michael Gonzalez. Nate Stewart has not yet reached this bit of traffic yet.
And I think the one thing that is helping the prototypes this time is the GT3 cars are a little bit more spread out. You see them kind of one at a time, a few gaps between them. So not quite as busy, but just as I say that, later in the screen, they go 4 wide.
Yeah, lots more traffic management. Nazir Monsto's trying to make passes now on Brokaw in particular. Nazir is dealing with a bit of that damage. Brokaw rides the curb like a skateboard. Here comes Robert Lowry to try and make a move.
Lowry in that prototype trying to tiptoe around the outside respectfully, gets one. Now he's going to get the second of the GT3 cars. It's Nasir as he goes by. And both of these cars, Lance and Tim, problems early trying to dig themselves out of that hole.
How difficult is that to be able to close up here is the question, as there goes Chris Wetz. What goes to the mind in this regard with how far back they are now?
I think you just got to keep on trucking out there. As we see Paul Mikolajczyk, I believe, just had a problem as well in this Ferrari we see on screen. But to talk about that, Justin, it's tough. But you know that you had a problem. Other people are not immune from problems. So you kind of made your bed already. Keep on trucking out there, and you never know what can happen. You still have 37 minutes remaining in the race, plus a pit stop.
Still expecting the stops around the later stages of this race. Still keep an eye, though, on how Stewart and Reynolds keep close. All while they're about to reach this whole hornet's nest. That is a lot. Those are a lot of competitors. 12th, 13th or so officially on the track overall. About your front half of GTs. Nate Stewart with a rough angle. Blake Reynolds first to check up.
That was Ray Kingsbury as they go flying by. Now they got to go by Brandon Lambert here in the Mercedes and Marwin Mofta in that silver Audi. Oh, so close between the prototype and the GT3 cars. You really get to see those funnel effects.
Of note, Trevor Greenfield has had another power outage, apparently. Said, good luck, everyone, then left on his own accord instead of via power outage. So I'm guessing he managed to get the UPS to work for the sprint round at least.
Oh, look at the wiggle coming out of Nate Stewart here. And yeah, unfortunate for Greenfield and those power problems. And hey, you know what? I can relate it to real racing. We got mechanical problems in the real race cars. Apparently the sim racers got issues too.
Yeah. when we're talking mechanical problems, usually it's not more so what happens in the car, rather in the sim side. It's more so the hardware, it's more so if the power outages go out, it's more so if a cat accidentally jumps on your face and you can't see where you're going, you know, those types of things.
Well, I got 3 85-pound golden retrievers over there, so I can definitely relate to that as we see Nate Stewart get right up on the back of Michael Gonzalez. Check this out. The GT3 field has really condensed this prototype battle for second place overall.
Yeah, this is one of the major things. Traffic give it, traffic take it away. Now it's the question, how does Gonzalez fare out as they pass by Christian Yunwall? Yunwall trying to stay up high. Nate Stewart getting through. Nearly to the back end of him goes Blake Reynolds. Reynolds having to wait an extra corner. Losing about 5 car lengths as a result of having to wait just the extra corner to navigate.
I think that corner in specific that we just saw Blake Reynolds have that big lockup, but it's got to be probably the trickiest corner on this speedway. I know that there's several sections out here that are very, very technical. I don't think this road course kind of gets enough respect for what it is.
Looking on board right now with some of these GTPs through the road course section, Nate Stewart. And, well, now the Ferrari has a problem. It is cutting through the final sector. As a matter of fact, Mikolajczyk cut the entire final chicane.
I think he's just trying to apply for Indianapolis fastest lawnmower service out there in that Ferrari.
Well, I heard that job was taken.
Anyhow, I heard it too.
Well, Gonzalez is trying to find his way back into the gap still.
Gonzalez, you're right. Not running away, and with 33 minutes remaining here, that pit stop window is still a little bit far away, but you got to think these drivers, do you start fuel saving if you can't get around Michael Gonzalez? Is that how you get around him? Maybe with a little bit of an undercut?
Very curious to see. And did make the reference to some of the sim race experience in terms of with Blake Reynolds on the oval side. As one driver is around, it's Cosgrove again. Cosgrove off from the top 3 after recovering from dead last. It appears he may have gotten a help, though. Marshbanks was nearby him before the start of the corner.
No help, unfortunately, and Cody Cosgrove just a little bit of too much curb. We're going to catch a look at this replay, and you're right, the Audi is behind him, but watch this impact on the curb. It's strange.
Yeah, that's a little sharp angle. What can cause that of an angle? That's why I thought it was for Marshbanks.
You're right, you know, it was just a little bit too much, and look at how tall this apex curb is. It really bit the BMW.
Yeah, now I can see it. That's about, what, a foot tall?
Yeah, and it just adds to the technicality of that corner. Not only the brake zone, but you got to be perfectly on the line. If you shortcut it, there's the giant curb. If you go in too deep, you're in the marbles, locking up and going off into the MotoGP route, which we've already seen.
Some drivers have indeed tried to two-wheel it across through parts of the circuit. Still keeping an eye, though, on how others are faring out. On some, Kevin Fanning. We've talked about this respective team. Fanning has been doing very well this season. 4th coming into today in the GT3 Pro Championship. He's been running basically 2nd in class all day. Oh, and we've had a crash. Nazir is off the track. Mikolajczyk has picked up a black flag as well.
Lots of stuff going on with the GT3 class. This is Mikolajczyk. This is the car, that Ferrari with the black flag out there. So he's going to have to come in, serve that. But this is Nasir here.
Oh, and that's Tim Brokaw behind.
Slightest of touches, and I mean, yeah, you technically you have to put fault on Brokaw, but you see the big slide out of Nasir, and then just Brokaw into the back of him. Definitely the fault lays on the 111 there. Can't drive through him.
So more contact amongst the two of them. Nazir has parked it for the night. So Nazir out of the race, or second DNF now with a feature. Getting back over towards Fanning. Fanning has been only on the podium just the one time so far. Interestingly enough, that was at Sonoma during that feature. He's been consistently 4th or 5th, though, in the pro class this season.
I've been watching the data over here, and I've been curious to see if Youngwall up front is saving anything, or if just kind of this is the pace that they're running. And here with Kevin Fanning, as he crosses start-finish, he's holding even with our leaders, minute 125 mid-pace. So the BMW right now, even though there's 5 seconds between himself and our leader, still turning very, very competitive laps.
But still a massive deficit to already have to close up. We're talking about 3-4 corners ahead of the racetrack for Yunwall. That's how big the deficit has gone towards the difference between him and Fanning.
Crucially, though, if you're Kevin Fanning, you can see him still. You see him down the racetrack, and that gives you hope. Kind of like that carrot that's out in front of you, and if you keep going at your pace, guess what? He stays in that same relative area. However, if you start losing pace, you notice him starting to stretch it out a little bit. Right now, Kevin Fanning holding pace.
Interesting enough, now we talked about how Artie Design looked to be in a potential 2-4 spot before some of the trouble broke out. Now you think about the other side, Simply Spark Local Racing. They're technically within range to Penguin RC Simulation in the team standings entering the night. Because 981 for Penguin RC Simulation, Simply Inspired enter the night with 905 points for their respective team. Now it's important to consider Marshbanks is in 3rd in the GT3 class. That is important for them to potentially try and leapfrog the Penguin RC Simulation cars, with Brian Son and Ray Kingsbury deep 13th and 14th overall, about 4 or 5 spots back.
I guess my biggest question for Marchbanks here is, you got the right fuel amount in the car, and let's keep fingers crossed that you do. You made the little mistake earlier in the sprint race. Let's not repeat it, especially with the track position that you've got right now, running a strong 3rd. I know it's a little bit of a lonely race, 3.5 seconds back from Fanning, 3.5 seconds in front of Mofta, but you can kind of focus on that strategy and see what you can pull out at the end of this thing.
It's been intriguing how things have broken down. Mofta, mind you, for reference, in one of the dirty sports cars, still holding on to 4th overall, and is in decent range to Marshbanks, was close before. But here's the thing, eventually the footsteps going to have to pick up, because Brian Son is starting to close in a little bit, has worked up some drafting lanes. Brandon Lambert, Ray Kingsbury up, for example. Cody Crosgrove working forward. It's slowly getting back that time right now. The difference is right now just where the traffic lays, it appears, the deltas.
Well, and here is an example of that as we get the prototypes. I believe this is our first taker in the prototypes. This is Nate Stewart coming down pit road.
An interesting call going early here, not even to halfway, and Nate Stewart says, I'm done. He was running in 3rd.
Well, apparently, in the words of Talladega Nights, he's going to hop on out of the car, get a chicken sandwich, make a phone call, and then be back.
Well, I don't think that driver came back either under the NASCAR circuit in the movie. So here is a scheduled stop for Justin Malillo, though.
Who wants to go fast?
Everyone. But in all seriousness, though, I wonder if he picked up a speeding penalty, Nate Stewart. The speed limit here is only about 40 miles an hour. Just look at the replay footage before the Stewart Alt F4. He was at 46 miles an hour at the cone, Joey.
Yeah, I mean, a black flag is tough. A penalty is tough. But you only have one person that causes that. So a little bit unfortunate to see the number 4 car exit if it was because of that.
Lazier, meanwhile, Still holding firm up at the point. And this has been, again, a stellar drive and a stellar season for Lazier. After all, we've talked so much about some of the experiences Lazier has. We'll have to keep an eye on how this plays out for that finale, though. And all of this, mind you, is with him missing that first round. He has been the driver who's won the most this season in this car. Endurance round at the French countryside. Picked up a victory at Sonoma Feature. Picked up a Long Beach sweep as well as part of his wins. By the way, we've got a confirmation. Nate Stewart, he did speed. He says goodnight.
Well, I hope he's got to be up early, get that beauty sleep in. Unfortunate to see the number 4 out of the race, not even halfway through here, but this is our leader, Flynn Lazier, as well as GT3 cars working their way up through some traffic. Christian Youngwall, once again, just throwing down some fast laps at the front of this GT3 field.
By the way, we've had an issue when it comes to Brian Son. Pit window open for some of the GTs. Ray Kingsbury boxing and Chris Wetz. And now we've had another spin. More troubles for Cosgrove. Or rather, one of the others in class. This is Son again spinning, in fact.
And you were just queuing it up because I believe that Brian had a spin early. Oh, and now he's off track again. Keep it together. Oh, another big wiggle. And Brian now pointed the right direction, but you got to wonder, how hot are those tires as we get a look? This is the first spin, Justin.
It's where it all started, letting by a teammate. And then Luke just sliding through the grass. And then it got much worse in that sequence. Same braking section that's caught out about a quarter of the field today.
And it was that apex curb again, and it was another BMW. I believe it was a BMW that it grabbed last time, but you're right, look at how tall it is, and if you're too aggressive with it, it seems to be grabbing the car and rotating it.
Took him about a good 30 seconds to fully gather it up. Brokaw, as a result, has passed him by for second and AM.
Brokaw kind of climbing back out of that hole that we saw him dig for himself earlier, although now he's got Matt Kingsbury in front of him, and Matt is way up the road, so if Tim wants to make up even more spots, I think he's got to hope for attrition on the racetrack or just some good old-fashioned amazing pit strategy. Is check this out. We've got some GT3 cars coming down pit road.
This one's Matt Kingsbury for Dirty Sport. And that might have been speeding nearly. No. Just able to get to the limiter in time. You see where the yellow cones are. That's been catching a couple drivers off guard, with that being just before the straightaway.
Well, and not only that, but you're used to accelerating up through that area, so being on the brakes when your brain is telling you I'm coming out on the front straight, I think it just kind of catches people out in Space Cadet land sometimes.
Well, from experience, you go to Space Cadet land, that's usually a bad sign if you're driving a race car.
You'd be surprised at what these drivers think about out there.
Hearing that, Kowalczyk had a screen freeze just now and nearly caused a problem for Chris Wetz and a couple others. It's not been a pretty night for the Ferrari. He's the only driver to manage to pick up a black flag in this feature race.
And I believe Paul is a lap down out there. Unfortunate to see the lone Ferrari kind of not be at the pointy end of the field. But hey, props to you, Paul, for getting back out there, completing laps, and having another car out on the racetrack. Getting those points, right? Getting those points that you've been talking about.
Getting that seat time as Malillo gets a little bit of camera time. This is the FTF Drivers Club car of Justin Malillo, currently last of the prototypes now, able to pick up some points for Nate Stewart. Give him A for effort as well. 356 total points scored for Malillo in a one-car team effort. He's sixth in prototype points.
Got to work by a couple more GT3 cars here. Usually I've seen Justin be very, very patient, very respectful with the traffic, and once again you see him, he clears that GT3 car on the straightaway in the acceleration zone, and another time very patient behind the next one. Great to see.
And we'll keep in mind, very known for his coverage of esports action in NASCAR in particular. He's worked for several different publications over the years. As one car decides to cut through the grass, and that is Gary Freeman once again.
Making it very easy coming back out onto the racetrack. I think he was just trying to stick down drivers right now. I believe this is our AM leader. I think this is Marwin Mofta coming down pit lane.
Mofta trying to get into one of the first pit boxes as well tonight. So make the roll on through here.
It's so slow. It looks like they're out of gas, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're not out of gas. They are on the limiter though, because here's the thing. The reason part of that is with the limiter is it's very easy with the throttle to just go too quick on the burp of the throttle. We've seen drivers accidentally press the pit limiter button, immediately speed 20 miles an hour quicker, and then realize I've turned it on off by accident, and they got a black flag.
Mm-hmm. It's an on-off, and yeah, it can definitely be tricky out there. And well, I got my eye. Gary Freeman continues to have problems. He just went off the racetrack one more time. Not exactly sure, but the 666 out there not enjoying his online gaming experience right now.
I can see how you're trying to phrase that with under 20 minutes to go. I will say this, if we can go back to Malillo, as we see some of the battling out for the pit stop cycling here. Mofta trying to hold off Kingsbury. No, Ray Kingsbury moving up. But was right about to say, when it comes to Malillo, he actually just picked up a direct drive wheel yesterday as a wheel upgrade. Massive upgrade when it comes to his equipment for the Traction GG reporter and editor.
Yeah, oh, it's huge. And I don't know if you've got a direct drive wheel, but especially when it comes to these prototype cars, like open wheel cars and prototypes like this, it is a huge difference in what you feel on corner entry, and that's exactly where you need it.
Well, keep in mind what's mandatory because, well, he also had a mechanical failure. The hardware kind of mechanical failure with this previous wheel. And he's been trying to get himself acclimated, as you can tell, with him here on the racetrack tonight still. Trying to find a way to get up to his fellow competitor, Chris Wetz, the nearest position, half a track up.
You see him, he's going to be coming up to these two GT3 cars as he goes by Marwin Mofta and Ray Kingsbury on the track. About a 30-mile-an-hour speed difference between the two classes at the end of the straightaway. And Malillo, once again, just very respectful with all of the cars on track. Doesn't matter if it's a GT3 or a prototype, as he goes right on by him.
Still, Kingsbury holding on for the time being. More pit stops. Christian Yunwall from the lead. Gibbs Kevin Fanning a lead lap for the first time today. And Yunwall making the slow roll. Of note, Mikolajczyk has just parked his Ferrari. He's now out of the race in the 177. That leaves Freeman as the last car running on the racetrack for Finam. And the difference I'm noticing, some drivers are able to take the tires, some are not taking the time on the rubber.
And that's curious. Especially in the GT3 cars, I've been watching the data, and the data shows about a 1 second fall off on tires. And so I would assume that the tires would at least be worth something out there.
Still keeping an eye on how Flynn Lazier is playing things. Lazier still holding on to now a near 5-second advantage, and this gap has been slowly growing again over Michael Gonzalez. He's been very difficult to stop tonight.
I think not only tonight, but it seems like whenever Flynn Lazier is on the racetrack, he's just a machine, if you will. He clicks off the passes, he clicks off the consistent laps, and he collects the checkered flags.
Kevin Fanning is in, so is Blake Reynolds. Their scheduled pit stops. This is now towards the edge of the gas window to make it to the end. Some of the short fuelers. Christian Youngwall trying to see where he'll cycle, expecting on the Delta be back up at the point. We'll have to see. Fanning is just now in the box.
I think Youngwall should have this with no problems at all. See the BMW still stationary, and here's the Audi already on the front straightaway. So Christian gonna fly on by at about 150 miles an hour as he puts his hand out the window and says, "See you later, I'm going to Gapplebee's."
I heard that's very popular in this city. That's a reference, I believe, to Mike Harmon. More pit stops, by the way. Tim Brokaw, Brian Son in, and now that's going to be interesting because Son is close to Brokaw for this window. Where did that time go around?
The BMW up on those jack stands. That means he's taken the tires. Then here we go. Here, I believe this is Blake Reynolds finally coming down pit road as well. Oh, this is Flynn Lazier. I'm sorry.
Flynn Lazier for the scheduled stop has dominated much of the day, looking to complete the money stop here. Same right now for Michael Gonzalez. You see how the Delta is, it looks short from the pit lane, but keep in mind that Delta, when they get rolling, still about 3 seconds at least.
Looks like Flynn stops in his box just perfect. So does Gonzalez. I always preach, you can lose a lot of time if you miss your pit box out there or speed. And now we're back out onto the racetrack, Flynn Lazier. And like you were saying, now you'll see that Delta stretch back out.
Off and away, there go the blinky lights with the limiter. Michael Gonzalez indeed back to where it was before, about 4 seconds. Lazier and Gonzalez. And I was curious on this and what Flynn Lazier's been doing outside of racing, as we've talked about, of course, from the famous Lazier family who did very well here at this facility over the years. He's also someone, mind you, on top of Formula Enterprises 2 championship action back in 2018 as a champion. He's also managed to become a social media manager for the local Tivoli Lodge in Vail, Colorado, his hometown.
You know, I'm kind of jealous, honestly. You know, I grew up kind of a ski bum out here in the Northwest, you know, as a ski instructor when I was 15 years old. And place that I never got to go is Colorado. So a little jealous over here.
I've never skied before, but you never know when it comes to that state. It is an intriguing state to be in. Lazier in a very comfortable state for this race. And comfortable state for the championship because unofficially, depending on how this goes, with Reynolds in third, Lazier takes the points lead for the season finale if he continues the speed and Reynolds doesn't pass Gonzalez. If Gonzalez drops back to third and Blake Reynolds goes to second, then we're looking at a dead tie entering the sprint at Watkins Glen.
And I tell you what, I don't think I ever want to go up against Flynn Lazier in a real car or in the sim world out here, but you put him up at Watkins Glen, a place that he probably knows like the back of his hand. I mean, how many laps does he have in the real world at Watkins Glen? Probably hundreds of laps. I think everybody else is at a disadvantage at that point.
Right now, the difference between Lazier and Reynolds about 6 seconds. The difference between Gonzalez and Reynolds about 2.5 seconds. Still about 12 minutes to go up on the clock. Things have settled out with things breaking up a little bit. I will give one shout, not just Mofta here, who's still with that AM lead now after the pit stop cycle by 26 seconds. Cosgrove, despite everything that's been going on, has been fighting to hold on and recover every time he's spun.
Kind of a story of what if for Cody Cosgrove today, because we documented the sprint race Lap 1, problem. Here in the feature, multiple spins for this number 02 BMW, but he continues to be one of the fastest cars on the racetrack in that GT3 class. I mean, I look at his lap times, he is consistently in the 125s. Like I said, a race of what if for Cody Cosgrove.
Let's take a look at a replay. Chris Wett's currently comfortably in 5th, as below is a lap down. However, not to say it's been easy for him in that spot. Take a look as he misses at least 3 corners.
That's another tricky braking zone. We've been talking about the one on the other end of the racetrack all night, but that's turn 3, turn 4. Actually kind of a similar deal where you kind of feed out into it from a corner and just looks like you went in a little bit too deep there.
He was able to avoid the time penalty for cutting that quick left-right flick, but the True North Esports machine still at the very least in that spot. 11 seconds back now to Lowry with a lot of traffic to deal with. That exact battle we were just watching with some of the Penguin RC simulation cars and Mofta in it.
Yeah, that's Cosgrove right in front of him in that BMW, and he's got to find a nice, easy way to get around him. Chris Wett's also being very respectful, getting through in the acceleration zone.
Next car up in line is where I also want to put a star in terms of recoveries. Brandon Lambert, remember, was involved in an early incident in the sprint. He's right now just shy of the podium, and who was that? It was Gary Freeman.
Yeah, more problems as black BMW. Now, Gary is kind of familiar with this part of the racetrack. Looks like he's going to get it spun around when there's no traffic, point at the right direction, but Gary Freeman, a couple laps down and struggling out there tonight, unfortunately.
It's not been his night on the racing surface, but I was about to say the battle's heating up when it comes to this, but also when it comes to Lambert's race. Started off was amongst those in the big crash and having to get the mandatory repairs done for the sprint. Nearly picked up some issues in the same section, though, with the traffic.
And you see how much gap he's got on Cosgrove behind him, almost that whole back straightaway. So Brandon Lambert, another one of those that was involved in the sprint mess, you know, but in the Mercedes, I think actually the lone Mercedes we've got here in the GT3 field, work in position number 4 right now.
And here's the important thing to consider. This is actually going to be the first race he's scored points outside of a 1-point night for a 30th place finish in a sprint to start the season. He may had been in registration for the feature, got 0 points though with the no start in the feature race, then DNF the last start he had at the French countryside.
Well, and I'm something else. Sorry to interrupt you here.
What's happened a second? Yeah, what happened to Michael Gonzalez with Blake Reynolds all of a sudden? A second, we'll have to take a look at what happened, because that changed and quickly, didn't it, last time by?
You're right. It looks like we're going to get a replay here. Ooh, does some GT3 traffic come into play? It looks like Gonzalez getting held up a little bit, and yeah, Reynolds just with a great move, capitalizing on the traffic with an over-under here.
He had to go for the move, and Gonzalez gives him the space. And that almost plays out part with the traffic really as the motivator, but also the championship. Reynolds now dead toe-to-toe with Lazier heading to the finale.
And I'm not going to count Blake Reynolds out of this yet. You see him dealing with some traffic, which will slow this lap down, unfortunately, as it gets by Marvin Mofta there in the GT3 cars. But looking at the lap times, he's turning comparable laps to Flynn, depending on what the traffic situation is, and he's only, call it 3.5 seconds behind. Ooh, that was close, though.
Still trying to navigate through Reynolds. Lazier lost a second when trying to deal with the same traffic, and now Gonzalez trying to get the draft. Both of them just about cut through the grass, trying to get the speed. Not close enough for a set. Gonzalez trying a little weave, coming to 6 minutes to go this time around.
Where is the attack gonna come from? Or does Blake Reynolds have the pace? Because it was the GT3 cars that really brought Gonzalez to his back wing, but now that Reynolds has a little bit of clean air, look at this. He is stretching it out over the number 75.
Give it a good by quickly this time. That's Lambert. Gonzalez not so lucky. Gonzalez losing a second and a half at least, as Lambert not able to get himself a spot to let by Gonzalez until this section.
It was the right decision, though. I know it's unfortunate, but you said it. Traffic giveth and traffic taketh away, and you just got to ride those waves.
Right now, the waves are starting to swim towards Reynolds' way. Never mind, the waves getting turbulent with Marchbanks. Able to skate by. We've had an air rash issue for Brian Son. Son with another spin. Son had been closing up the protocol, and now that chance to pass by is gone. In fact, he'll lose a lap to Yunwall. As into the grass goes a prototype, Chris Wetz to pass them both.
You're right. It made a little bit of a nervous moment as Youngwall and Wetz were going by Brian Son, which was a slow car out there, but thankfully every party there was able to navigate it.
I mean, he's been using just about all the runoff space tonight. Let's take a look at the battles continuing out, though. Crossgrove, Rick Kingsbury, Mafta still close amongst another. Be with Crossgrove with a bit of a more of a buffer, per se, with all this. Ray Kingsbury, though, has been basically having Mofta in his rearview mirror most of these past 10 minutes, and now he sends it to that mirror and passes him.
What an aggressive move from Marwin Mofta. We've seen him get into the back of Kingsbury both times a little bit earlier in that same section of racetrack, but this time makes it stick. Looks like we got problems. I believe this is Matt Kingsbury, or Gary, around a little bit earlier.
Yes, indeed. Lots of time separate for Matt Kingsbury in all of this. Still looking back to Mofta and Ray Kingsbury. Ray trying to build up the run a little lower, heading to the curbing. About 3 or 4 laps to go at best. The draft not as big as it was expected coming in, only that 2-mile-an-hour difference. That being said, Kingsbury looking hungry on the brakes, trying it. Near contact, nearly shoves Mofta off the racetrack.
Oh, definitely gave him a little bit of a nudge there to the back bumper. Ray looking to the inside now of the Audi, pokes the nose. Marwin this time leaves a little bit of room. You're seeing him have to check up big time. More contact on the exit. Unfortunately, Ray Kingsbury kind of getting shoved out a little bit there. You saw him so close to the back of the Audi. The Audi was out of shape, and then unfortunately, Ray lost out.
Now a decent amount of damage to the right rear as a result of contact from Mofta. That play out for the final couple minutes here. Ray Kingsbury still stronger through this sector in turn, much more aggressive on the curbing. Also, more issues for Robert Lowry, as well as another spin. This is Marchbanks, who's just turned it around as well.
He's got it going again, but unfortunately that takes him off of the podium. John Marchbanks was in that position number 3 in the GT3 class. This is that same corner, Justin, and it's another curb.
Great brake usage for Malillo, able to avoid the contact, but Lambert was that spot, driving by easily right behind Malillo.
Well, and about Lambert, that officially makes him our biggest mover. He was tied with Cody Crossgrove, but now Brandon Lambert in that Mercedes up 10 positions from where he started.
What a run, and what a difference between sprint and feature for the 46 machine. Meanwhile, down the front straight, Lazier coming across the flag stand, not slow enough to trigger the white flag, which means 2 to go for the field. That's more so antithesis of the pace Lazier has had. 1 minute and 15 seconds flat last time. Reynolds with no traffic had a 1:14.4 though.
And when they both got clear, Flynn was about 4.5 seconds, maybe 5 up the road, as you see Blake Reynolds almost into the back of Matt Kingsbury. I think Blake Reynolds is in full go mode out there. He sees Flynn Lazier. He saw that gap closing. He thought, maybe I've got a shot at this one.
Turn expecting the white flag this upcoming time by. Zero of note, the reason for the interval dropping now, just getting around Tim Brokaw. Reynolds going to have to deal with them next, though. Here is a look at Lazier. 30 seconds to work with for the penultimate race of the season. If Reynolds can find a way up there, he can try and hold on to that points lead. Lazier, if things hold serve for one more time around, will tie it up just about for the championship. More traffic. Reynolds wants the inside, peels off Brokaw for the line. 4 seconds with the white flag waving.
Unfortunately, Blake Reynolds lost even more time there with the GT3 class, and so all Flynn Lazier has to do is hit his marks, and he will collect another checkered flag. Hey, as long as he's got enough fuel in the car.
Don't remind Marshbanks. Oh, and more troubles. It's been a struggle this past lap or two for Lowry. Already one spin coming out of the grass that moment for Lowry after cutting the corner.
And just to report, Youngwall, our GT3 leader, just took the white flag, so our GT3 cars are on their last lap now as well.
And Youngwall has been outright dominant, 13 seconds up during the feature. But it's been that way for both the classes. Flynn Lazier dominating his way. There goes Mofta to take his white flag for the M class. All while one corner back, Flynn Lazier coming out of the final corners for the second time this season has the full round sweep. Lazier knocking on the door for the championship fight with Reynolds. He wins in the prototypes over Reynolds heading into the finale.
Just another flawless execution from Flynn Lazier out there. We're going to jump back. This is our GT3 leader. Christian Youngwall just has a couple more corners to navigate. He's got a very healthy 13-second gap over Kevin Fanning, and just another kind of flawless execution like we just saw from Flynn Lazier. Christian Youngwall, your GT3 winner.
Outright domination for Youngwall. He has won all but 2 races this season amongst the rounds. Fanning and Lambert the top 3. All while Mofta picking up a big score of points tonight. With some struggles for Brian Son on the track in the feature. Mofta able to pick up a lot of ground for that AM championship fight. Coming to the final section. Only Chris Wetz again to deal with to the outside. Marwin Mofta, once more, an AM class winner. Able to hold off Tim Brokaw for the second spot. So checker flag waving for just about all the drivers. Everyone has taken the checkered, which in turn means we can look towards the unofficial race results. Lazier, Reynolds, Gonzalez, top 3 in GTP tonight, and the BMWs up front. Lowry, Wetz, and Malillo, how they finished in class. 1 DNF for them, Nate Stewart. Youngwall, Fanning, Lambert, Marshbanks, top 4 in GT3 Pro today.
And in 11th place overall, we got Cody Crosgrove. Then our AM leader, or I should say our AM winner, Marwin Mofta. Back here, Ray Kingsbury, Tim Brokaw, second in AM. Matt Kingsbury, Brian Son, our first car, or I should say our first GT3, 1 lap down. Gary Freeman, a couple laps down. And then the rest of these runners, DNFs with problems. Paul Mikolajczyk, Nate Stewart, Lance Nasir, and Trevor Greenfield.
That's all talked about at the running order here tonight. And what was an intriguing one, once again, for our respective competitors on how they sorted things out throughout this evening for this penultimate round of the season. And as the drivers make their way towards virtual victory lane and towards our direction here, Joey, how would you describe the racing here tonight in turn? The feature race very different feel than the sprint.
It was busy. It was still very, very busy. But I liked seeing the varying strategies, especially in the prototype class with Blake Reynolds coming a little bit earlier than Gonzalez and Flynn Lazier. Ultimately, it put him in front of Gonzalez with that pace. So I liked seeing the varying strategy aspects. I was just wondering, though, was anybody going to go and top Flynn or Christian out there? And I guess another story complete, another chapter in the book with Flynn and Christian picking up those checkered flags.
Flynn Lazier now standing by, picking up the full round sweep tonight. Flynn Lazier picking up the W in GTP action. Flynn able to pick up the victory here tonight. Big for the championship standings, though, because you and Reynolds neck and neck for the finale now.
Yeah, we had a pretty smooth race, but I think that puts us like within a point for the championship. I'm not sure, but yeah, we had a really smooth race, and the other guys on the team were really close to me. I think we just had a slightly different strategy on tires. I think I was pushing pretty hard at the beginning, and they were pushing hard at the end, and yeah, it was a smooth race, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So I want to thank everybody with Penguin, and thank you guys for a good broadcast.
We'll ask about the tires because in the past we didn't see too much fall off with these cars, but now, tonight, the fall for, even when you factor in the traffic, looking at your feature times, up to a second to a second and a half. What do you think pointed to that factor with how big the tire wear was tonight?
Yeah, I was really considered taking tires at the end there, but I don't think the other guys are going to take tires, so I would have just lost track position. But I just think with this car, now they just have somewhere if you push really hard, then the tire's going to fall off, and someone like Blake wasn't pushing as hard at the beginning, and at the end he just had so much more tire than I did. So I think that'll play, the strategy will come into play for the last round, and yeah, we'll see what we can do.
So Watkins Glen for the season finale. Fairly certain you have a lot of experience there. Confidence levels for that finale.
Yeah, Walking Glens is sweet. I don't know what kind of setup we're running. We're all pretty much running the same setup for these races, so yeah, it's super even. But yeah, really like Watkins Glen, and anything can happen there. So looking forward to it.
Well, congratulations on the prototype victory. Congratulations on the full round sweep. It's the second time you've done so. You did so as well at Long Beach. Congrats.
Thank you.
That's Flynn Lazier with the checker flag, the overall win, and the prototype victory. Meanwhile, Christian Wall picked up the pro class victory for the GT3s. Here's with Joey.
Christian, first of all, congratulations on collecting another win here in the GT3 class, this time at Indianapolis.
Thank you.
Now, talk to me a little bit about your night. It seemed a little bit lonely out there, but how did you manage to get that gap on the rest of the GT3 field in those first, call it 1-2 laps, and then maintain it?
Well, just before that, well, I have some pretty good experiences considering this is the new Indianapolis layout for the road course. A lot of these guys seem to not have driven this newer layout because it hasn't been on iRacing too long. Hasn't been too many series that go to it. So I think a lot of these guys were struggling with that. So I knew if I could get myself around T1 without going too wide, I knew Kevin would have to be forced too wide with whoever because they weren't going to allow that. So I knew if I could get around there, I think I had a 1.5-second gap or something after T1 in both races once I got around it. So, I mean, I know that from previous races that if you could do that, you could really keep it. And the car felt fantastic. So, I mean, I think me and Kevin were pretty even on pace. He had some unfortunate, I think lap cars or traffic and stuff. But yeah, I mean, not too much drama on my end.
Well, and you kind of wrapped up my second question. I was going to ask how the car was underneath you, but it sounds like it was good. Did you have any worrying moments with any curbs out there or the prototypes? Because we saw both prototypes and the track bite a couple of other competitors.
Yeah, I know John in the Audi too. We were running the same setup. I know he near the end unfortunately got caught by one of the curbs and brought him around. And I know a few other drivers were hitting the same curb and saying that it just spun them. Even Cody, I know, had it too. So I think I think it's running this track enough times, I've learned where you can and can't really push it. So I don't think I really had too many big incidents. I think just sort of towards the end of my stint, before I pitted, the tires were getting a little bad towards the back to the main straight start finish. But never really anything too bad as long as you kind of didn't try to really overdo anything. Car felt really good.
Well, Christian, congrats once again on an excellent night. Anybody you want to say hi to?
Just thanks everyone here. Thanks Brian again for hosting it. I know a lot of us are doing Le Mans this weekend, so good luck to everyone there, and thanks for having me, guys.
Well, that was Christian Youngwall once again coming home with the win here in the GT3 class.
Very dominant run indeed. And he's from French countryside, not that other place. As Marwan Mafta now makes his way over for the M-Class victory here tonight. Marwan, it was very different from what we've seen for Christian Youngwall tonight. You had a lot to battle with. How would you describe the roller coaster of emotions from the sprint race, which seemed plenty of troubles early, to this race where everyone else except for you had troubles in AM?
So, yeah, I got too excited in the sprint. I know I had a fast car. I wanted to push hard. I overdid it, was overdriving the car. So, in the future, I took a step back. I was like, keep it clean, push forward, don't get in trouble. And I lost a couple positions in the pit rotation because I took 4 tires. Everyone else was taking less, but worked out in the end.
You talked about the differences you were taking in terms of what the tire compounds were. We were seeing some of the differential in terms of just drivers up on the jacks, for example. How was it trying to manage the rubber tonight because of the amount of fall-off being the highest of the season?
So I took it safe. I took 4 tires. Everyone else was taking just 2 tires, banking that they're not using all 4, but I was pushing hard in the braking zones. I know that's where my advantage is. So I wanted the 4 set. Again, it's a trade-off.
Well, indeed, you're amongst those in the conversation for at least second, depending on how things shake out with the official points tallies, potentially even for the AM points tally for the championship. How are the nerves entering that season finale now for Watkins Glen with you, Son, and Brokaw being the favorites for M-Class championship fighting?
I'll tell you, I'm going to put a lot of practice. I like that track. Audi usually is pretty good there, so hopefully we'll be pushing regardless.
Any shout-outs?
To the team, everyone, Matt, John, and Christian and the team, they really help out and keep us focused during the race. And for you guys for hosting the good show and making us work hard for it. So thanks.
It's Marwan Mafta coming away with the M-Class victory tonight. I thank him as well as Flynn Lazier, as well as Christian Youngwall for the time during post-race coverage here on FDFGG. But on that note, it's time to head towards the track exit. Next time out, June the 15th, is when we battle for a championship. That taking place at Watkins Glen International Sprint and Feature format. The pressure is on, especially in the prototypes as well as the GT3 AM Championship fights. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye. For Joey Atterbury, for Zach Johnson, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching SimCar and Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Series competition from Speedway, Indiana.